Welcome to today's episode of the From the Hart podcast, presented by Orange Kiwi Consulting and Crisp Imaging. Orange Kiwi is a consulting firm that specializes in helping family and closely held businesses navigate significant transitions. Visit them at www.orangekiwillc.com. Crisp Imaging is a family-owned reprographics and digital printing provider. They offer large and small format printing, document management, scanning, and archiving. Known for their customer-focused culture and high-quality services, Crisp Imaging provides solutions for everything from construction plans and specification books to large-scale exterior graphics and vehicle wraps. Visit them at crispimg.com. My guest today is Adam Hill. Adam is a professional EOS implementer, family business visionary, international keynote and TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and host of the Fearless Family Business podcast. As CEO of a century-old fourth-generation family business, Adam has successfully guided his family's company through generational transition and significant economic and cultural change to become an aligned, sustainable nine-figure business. Adam grew up in the family business and has spent more than 2 decades working in and leading the company, providing a deep understanding and expertise in managing complex family business dynamics. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology from UC Santa Barbara and an MBA from the University of Massachusetts. After transforming his life and becoming an elite world champion qualifying triathlete, he has coached dozens of triathletes to cross their first Ironman triathlons. Today, as a professional EOS implementer and family business visionary, he helps entrepreneurs and leadership teams get more of what they want from their business through the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and we're going to get into that today. I'm excited for you to hear that conversation. Adam leverages his platform as an international keynote speaker to do more than just entertain audiences. He provides actionable strategies that address the pivotal challenges of leading a family business into the future. When he's not coaching, speaking, or hosting his podcast, chances are he's entertaining people with his dad jokes. Whether he's successful at that or not, you can be the judge, as we got into some dad jokes today in the conversation. I'm excited for you to listen to this podcast that I've had with Adam Hill. Adam and I have known each other for a couple of decades now. I've known his family business for a long time. So sit back and enjoy this conversation with Adam Hill, EOS Worldwide, and host of the Fearless Family Business podcast. So welcome, Adam. It's great to see you today. I had the good fortune a couple of weeks ago of having the tables turned. So if you're watching the video, you might have noticed a couple of weeks ago the pictures were opposite. I was sitting where Adam is. He's sitting where I am. He interviewed me for his podcast. So I really enjoyed that. As Adam and I were just joking before we hit record here, it's easier to be the guest. You know, I'm more comfortable being the host because it's what I'm comfortable with, but it's easier to be the guest because you don't have to prepare anything.
Right.
So Adam, welcome. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And especially thank you for being a guest on mine. It's good to see you from the Hart podcast.
Well, thank you, Ed. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. And now I might have just put my foot in my mouth by saying that I didn't have to prepare anything, because this is the time when my mind goes blank and I just forget everything. So we'll see how it works out.
Well, most importantly, I want my audience to know that of all the amazing things that Adam does, we're going to talk about transformation and how he's transformed his life and how he now works to transform the lives and businesses of others, and what he's done as an Ironman and what he does as a businessman and a fourth-generation family businessman and so forth. The greatest value that Adam adds to my life as a father of 4 and a grandpa to basically 12 is he provides me with dad jokes. And you may or may not know it, but on your social media posts and your book and other things that you've done, Adam is the master at not only finding and cultivating and sharing dad jokes, but he's a master at delivering dad jokes. So Adam, before we start, you got to tell us a dad joke.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, thank you for that intro, by the way. I mean,
right?
Dad jokes.
I like being known for the dad joke guy above everything else.
Absolutely. I'm more than happy to be known as that. And I have a story about it too, but I'll share the dad joke first. But I want to draw attention to the dry erase board behind me. Draw attention being one of the first parts of that dad joke, by the way.
But I'm bummed. Yeah.
But yeah. But I mean, it is a real amazing whiteboard, isn't it? Remarkable.
Oh, look at that. Well, here we go, folks.
And that's the beauty of a great dad joke is that it just has this awkward beat that happens right after it. And that's the moment. I mean, I think that everything in the universe lives right there.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. I love it. See, we're already 2 for 2.
Right.
So yeah, don't worry, folks. We're not going to sit until, I can just hear radios turning off and
Right.
podcasts being shifted over as we speak. Not because of you, but no, some other day we'll do just dad jokes for an hour and we'll have our audience of one who listens to that dad who
Exactly.
wants to
Right.
make that dad joke. So how did that start? I know your dad pretty well. Your dad maybe later in life didn't strike me as the dad joke guy, but he does have kind of that dry sense of humor.
He
Is
does. And I mean,
that
I
one that
think
got you into it?
yeah, I think he was a big part of it. You know, my brother was a dad. There was a lot of creative jokes that happened that I was, growing up, I remember that I was kind of envious that they were quick-witted on that front, like, and they could just come up with that stuff right away.
Yeah.
And but for me, it really didn't start until about 2015. And I had been on social media quite a bit before that, of course, and I started kind of falling into that same trap a lot of people have fallen into, which is starting to consume the negative. And that's one of the problems with social media and the news and all this stuff is it tends towards the negative bias. You get drawn into the negativity more than you do the positivity.
Right.
And I, of course, fell into that trap. And I just found that the more that I got drawn into the negativity, the politics, all this stuff that was being posted around that time, and that's when things were starting to heat up. Uh, I just felt worse. I just didn't feel good. So I made a commitment at one point during that time to just kind of swear off the news and
Mhm.
not watch the news anymore and start just posting one stupid joke a day. And
Nice.
it really just started with this long, drawn out post about a pirate. I don't even remember what the joke was. It was something about a pirate. Because pirates are always funny. They're a great source of comedy. I mean, you have patches, you have peg legs, all that good stuff. They're a great source
They sure
of
are.
comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
Well
look at
placed.
that, right?
Yes.
See?
So I started post and I realized, wow, a long drawn out dad joke or post joke every day will be a lot. So it kind of over time just transitioned into puns. And what I found was that in just doing that dumb post, people started to respond over time and people began to tell their own jokes
Yeah.
and pun wars started to develop. Um, like I would post the remarkable joke, and somebody would say, "Oh, that I'm going to mark this one for later," something stupid like that, and then it would just
Just
go back and
added on
forth.
to it. I remember that. I remember
Yeah,
seeing a lot of that and participating in some of those with you as well.
yeah, and in that, so it was making other people's lives just that much more enjoyable. And every day I would come back to it and I would see that positivity. I was kind of forcing that positivity, and
Yeah.
I just found my mood generally got better, and other people as well, and it formed this community. And about 3,000 days of jokes later, I did a TED Talk on it. And now that's the TED Talk that's out there called The Community That You Didn't Know You Needed. And it's all about creating community through one small creative act instead of leaning into that negativity that divides us. Let's lean into the small creative positive acts that unite us.
No, I love that. That is so great. And thank you for doing that because you're right. This world is we're divided enough as it is.
Yeah.
And I love the word diversity. I love that there's, unique skill sets and paradigms and experiences on every one of our city blocks and in our neighborhoods
Yeah.
and at the coffee shop and everywhere you go, there's diversity and I love it. But we can't lose sight of the fact that the first 3 letters of diversity are the same 3 letters in the word divisive.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying the divisiveness is because of the diversity, but with diversity also comes differences of opinions. And so for us to have somebody like yourself unifying us through humor, it could be spirituality, it could be, inspiration, it could be a lot of things. And you've chosen those as well, but you also have chosen the tool of humor. And I think that just knocks down barriers and I love it. I was on a call earlier today with a good friend of mine who's a former pastor and a former nonprofit leader, and we're doing some work together on a nonprofit project right now. And before we prayed at the end of our call, like we always do, we told each other a few jokes because I told him I was having you on, and he knew who you were. I
Oh,
said, "Oh, the
really?
dad joke guy." It's like, "Oh, great! So Adam Hill, the dad joke guy, right?" Don't worry, that's not what we're going to call the podcast. But no, I love it, and it transforms relationships, and that's the word I wanted to start with today with you was that word transformation it's mentioned in your bio that you transformed your life. And we're going to get into Adam, as I mentioned in the intro. Um, Adam comes from a fourth generation family owned business. Hill Brothers out here in Southern California. I've known the family for 2 decades. I've worked individually and collectively with Adam and his team and his family in the past. Like I said, I've been on his podcast. He now is running EOS worldwide. We'll talk about that a lot. A lot of people, EOS, what's that? So you're going to get a chance, obviously, to talk a lot about that. But
Mhm.
let's talk about that word transformation. I'm going to allow you to just take it wherever you want, transforming your own life, transforming others. I liked the discussion we just had on humor, how it can
Yeah.
transform an uncomfortable situation. When you hear the word transformation, Adam, just where does your mind go?
Yeah, I look, the one thing that came to my mind, and it may have been random, but I think it's related when you were talking about the idea of transformation was human connection
Mhm.
and possibility. And in our world today, kind of getting back to what we were just talking about in this divisiveness, there's a lot of things that are able to kind of divide us, within the ranks of or maybe take the place of human connection. Let's say that, um, you know, television, social media, AI, and these are not bad things, by the way. They just are tools,
Yeah.
and how we choose to use them. But I think that if we're not intentionally focused on everything that we use as a tool, driving us towards greater human connection and maybe greater connection to God, we are, we're depriving ourselves of the most important part of our human experience. And I was depriving myself of that human experience, well into my 20s and early 30s. I was an isolator. In college, I well, even going back further, when I was, growing up, I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I considered myself an introvert. I kind of leaned into that idea, and you wouldn't know it now. I just didn't feel really comfortable in social situations or anything like that. And I realized it, or I didn't realize it in college, but it started to manifest that I had this really intense anxiety prone nature. And I
Mhm.
only started to realize that when I started drinking, as people do in college. I drank
Sure.
heavily. And
You're
I
an
found that
adult
when I,
and you have that opportunity to make choices for yourself and
absolutely.
accountable only to you, it feels like.
Right. Yeah. And I was kind of surrounded by it in a world and at UC Santa Barbara where seemingly everybody drank. Not
Yeah.
everybody drank, but the people I surrounded myself with sure did. And so it normalized it to an extent, but I took it farther. And I found that for me, it unlocked this door to being social, to being the life of the party, this positive reinforcement that I never got, that
Mhm.
just was this massive hit of dopamine to me that made me realize, oh, I've found the solution here. And that solution
Yeah.
is alcohol, pun
Right.
intended.
Yeah. Suddenly I can be the life of the party.
Yeah, I could, oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I had a pop up that made my screen freeze. I hope we can cut this. I apologize.
Yeah, no
But
problem at all. Yeah.
all
The beauty of editing. Yeah.
right. um, so I found myself, yeah, as the kind of the felt feeling like the life of the party and everything like that, and this positive reinforcement, and it was just this slow, insidious decline into alcoholism, where it was, the best way I've heard it described is it was fun, and then it was, fun with problems, and then it was just problems,
It was just problems.
and
Wow.
and I and I by the time it became apparent to me that it was problematic, it was beyond the point of my ability to stop on my own.
Mm.
And stopping alcohol at that point would have required me to get into a community and get help, which would have really gone against my ability to, lean into other people. Um, and it was in 2012 when I, broke the last rule that I said that I would never break, and I got into a DUI accident.
Mm.
And that was, and fortunately, nobody was injured, but sitting in the jail cell, I realized that I was not just a danger to myself, but I was a danger to others, and that was not okay with me. So I had a choice to make, which was I could remove myself from this world, or I could lean into help. And fortunately, by God's grace, I leaned into help instead of ending my life. And
Yeah.
I went into the rooms of AA, and that was the first step of a transformation that would be the most important transformation of my life. And that's kind of where I get to the idea of transformation being part of human connection and being a part of community. Because oftentimes, if we're going to make such a dramatic change in ourselves, we are going to essentially end the life of a certain part of ourselves. And
Right.
that's not saying literally, it's just saying
Yeah, that
we,
part dies.
yeah, the
Yeah.
part of us dies.
Yeah.
And as bad as it may have been, or as much as we didn't want it, it's still a part of us that we have to grieve. And it's a part of us that has to change. And that transformation is a death and a rebirth. And both of those aspects require that we lean into the support that can help us through that. So community is that first most important part of it.
Yeah. So that's really big. I appreciate you sharing that too. I walk into these conversations sometimes knowing a lot about my guests and knowing some of their story. Sometimes I know the whole story. Sometimes I don't know any of it. I knew
Yeah.
some of that story already. So I appreciate you sharing even more. And I know that, myself, I've benefited even from you just sharing that a little bit. We all go through our down times, and
Mhm.
I've not had those same experiences you've had about others similar that have led me into I got to change that behavior and go do something else. But hopefully there's one person listening or watching today too that that might be resonating for you. And if it is, I'm going to have Adam's contact information. You already have my contact information if you've watched or listened to this show. If you want to reach out to Adam and talk further, I know Adam well enough to know that he'd be happy, right? To talk with anyone
100%.
that might be going through those struggles, as would I. And we can also put you in touch with professionals. I mean, if you're battling with mental health issues, drinking, any kind of addiction of any kind, it's not what the From the Heart podcast is about, but I feel inspired and impressed right now to just share with you, our audience. If you're going through something, get help. I mean, somebody out there loves you. You may not feel like the world cares for you very much, but somebody in this world cares for you more than you know. And
Mhm.
grab a hold of that. It's gotten me through some tough times. I'm sure it has for you as well.
Absolutely. I mean, there's countless times in my life since then that have seemed impossible
Yeah.
and hopeless. And I'm just here to say, as a human example of that, that there is always hope beyond hopelessness. That it's never hopeless. It is never hopeless. There's always a way out. And repeatedly, I've shown that. I've tried to, even unpack that and determine what those components are of turning hopelessness into this victory or some kind of, you know, of wonderful, amazing experience beyond it.
Yeah.
And I've done that multiple times, and there's possibility there.
How does it, how does that darkness that you've been in the past show up now as light? I mean, are there any stories or stories in your own life or stories that you've seen in others,
Mhm.
strangers, family members, friends, what have you, where your experience of that darkness has helped somebody else or you feel more light today? I don't know how to ask that question, but I think you know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it happens from time to time, and I think it's again going back to that human connection is when you genuinely can connect with people. And I'm pretty open about my story.
Hmm.
I feel like being being open selfishly for me helps keeps me I mean originally it's kept me sober
Yeah.
because now I'm holding myself accountable by making this my public persona.
Yeah.
And so that's one aspect of it, but it also helps people to know that they are not alone. And so from time to time I do get reached out by people who have read my book or who have listened to my podcast or something like that, heard me tell my story, and they've benefited from it. And most recently, within the last couple of weeks, I had a good friend, from mention that, and I think from that standpoint, seeing that light just kind of gives hope to even what we see now. We're very it's very public facing right now of the a lot of the hopelessness a lot of people feel, and
Yeah.
I think the idea that collectively maybe we're feeling this, that there's a sense of hopelessness, and makes us each feel individually feel alone. But when you just have that one human connection like that, one on one, like we're having right now,
Right.
That's the hope. That's the nature of the hope, where two or more are gathered. That's where
Yeah.
there he is in the midst. It's that connection. It's so powerful.
I've written down four words that we've talked about already, or that you brought up: transformation, accountability, hope, and connection. I
Hmm.
mean, these are things that obviously drive your life now and drive my life as well, honestly. Talk about professionally how those words show up for you. Talk about EOS. I mean, I don't want to venture away from this topic. I want to stay on
Sure.
this topic, but use it as the sprinkler on top of all the different things that we're going to grow right here in this conversation. Just came up with that analogy, by the way. Like dad jokes come to you, stupid analogies come to me. But I
Well,
do. I tend to sprinkle things with different words and talk about how transformation, accountability, hope, connection help you in your EOS implementation. What is EOS? How does that work? And so forth.
yeah. Well, very simply, what EOS is it's a set of simple tools and timeless practices that have been, in place, helping organizations run for hundreds of years and will be around for thousands of more. People like Jim Collins, Patrick Lencioni, Stephen Covey, they've taken these philosophies and they've put them out there into the world. Gino Wickman, who wrote the book Traction, kind of basically compiled all those philosophies and packaged them up into what we call EOS.
Have it
And there's
right
the book right
here.
there. Yeah,
Adam
that
sent
book.
this to me after I was a guest on his show. So
That's right.
that's,
Shameless plug.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really what EOS is it's taking those philosophies of those great, business philosophers, so to speak, packaging them up so that they can be applicable to business, so that they can improve their vision, improve their execution, and improve their team health. And so I ended up, so kind of the backstory of transformation there. When I took over Hill Brothers, this was back in 2018, and frankly, Hill Brothers was in a really tough spot then. For about
Yeah.
the previous 4 years, we hit a ceiling. We weren't growing. We hit a revenue peak, and really our margins started to compress over that time. We just could not get, pun intended, traction. And so when I took over, we were fairly disjointed. There was misalignment, and I frankly felt alone again. Similar to how I felt when I was an alcoholic. I felt like I didn't have anybody to really lean on there, and there was trust issues, and I just felt like all of the weight of everything was on my shoulders. Like I was, the relationships became transactional, all of that. And so for a couple of years, we were operating like that, and within my second year of being the president, we were nearly insolvent and frankly just on the verge of bankruptcy. This is a 100-year-old company that my great
Right.
grandfather started.
Yeah.
It's 60 owners, 60 family member owners that were involved in this business. And all of that weight I felt was squarely on me. And I felt that hopelessness again. And I felt it, many times before, but fortunately, because of the communities that I put myself in, I was part of this mastermind community called GoBundance that was just a group of men entrepreneurs that I wanted to learn from, that I wanted to kind of be able to understand how they were doing the impossible in business and life and family and all that. And the people in that room kept talking about this book, Traction. And so I read it in a weekend and kind of fell in love with the ideas.
Yeah.
And I'd known about, Jim Collins and Good to Great and all those things for a long time, but didn't know how to put it into practice. And this really felt like an application that I could use. So I called an implementer named Richard Price on a wing and a prayer, and hired him that weekend to come into our business. And it was quite literally, I mean, I will say from my standpoint, this was one of the best investments we've made in the 100 years that we were in business.
Wow.
Because even though it wasn't an overnight success, over the course of 2 years, we grew our revenues by about 50%. It brought us into becoming a nine-figure business. It
Mm.
made us sustainably profitable again. We found alignment. It became fun again to
Yeah.
work in a family business, and yeah. So like the promises did start to come true for us when we brought together that framework, and I didn't really feel alone again because it brought a level of honesty and trust to our organization that just wasn't there when I joined in. And that's kind of what EOS did for us. And I made a decision recently that I wanted to make a bigger impact using EOS. I mean, I drank that Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
long ago, and wanted to. And I love coaching. I've been a coach in triathlon and other areas in the past. I love watching people and companies transform. I wanted to help other companies transform as well.
What kind of can you touch at all on, I mean, without giving away the recipe and the Kool-Aid recipe, if you will, just what are a couple of the things that really stand out that you've seen that really tend to help these businesses that you're coaching the most when it comes to this implementation?
Yeah, I think and I can give away the entire secret recipe and all that. That's totally fine. I mean, really, there's what it comes down to is EOS is really designed to strengthen six specific key components of the business, and it's in the EOS model. It's about strengthening vision. It's about strengthening your people component, getting right people in the right seats, strengthening your data component, making sure you're running your business on the right type of data, strengthening your issues component, because the best companies in the world realize that issues are not problems. Issues, every company in the world has issues. And if you can get better at solving those issues permanently,
Or
you solve an
opportunities?
elevated
Yeah.
set of issues. Yeah. And then you solve process. You get strong in the process component. And then you get strong with execution, which is what they call the traction component. And if you get strong in those six key components, you become one of the top 5% companies in the world. You're really, it really quantifies what Jim Collins would call a great company.
Yeah.
And that's what really attracted me to it. And when I see that transformation, working with clients that I work with, it's really seeing the impact of it's almost like the first day of kindergarten, in that first session. People don't know what to expect. They're afraid to be honest. They're afraid to get things on the table. They're afraid to say that go into the dark forest, so to speak. They're just walking around the perimeter of really what they need to solve.
Yeah.
But at some point in time within those first couple sessions, they start digging into the issues and they start kind of nudging against the trees in the forest, and then they're starting to get in there, and finally somebody goes in, and you can almost hear and feel this exhale, this audible sigh of relief that somebody got it out there. And then they start to really dig in and solve it. And that happens every single time. And it's an amazing situation because that's when the company starts to transform. They start getting honest with themselves.
I'm sure the answer to this question is everyone, but realistically, who's that prime candidate? The family businesses, you and I know a lot of families together. We won't mention them as candidates or not, but I mean, what, and then obviously not just for family owned businesses, but any business. What symptoms do most companies see happening in their organization that would lead them to this process?
I think ideally, they have to want to see those symptoms first. I think as you and I both know, a lot of the symptoms that occur in family businesses and legacy businesses alike are they become sacred cows that nobody touches on.
Yeah.
And so I think that there has to be a desire, a strong enough pain for those companies to want to change. Even if those sacred cows are still too scary to touch, as long as they are willing to address that pain, get them in the room, and then they start to nudge against it. So I think it's twofold. It really is the desire to grow, that they want to make a change. They want to transform. I mean, in any transformation, that's a prerequisite. You have to want it. You have to want it.
Yeah.
And then secondly is the pain just has to be enough that it forces you to want to transform.
It's like what you went through.
Yeah.
Sitting in a jail cell. I can't do this anymore. You got to want
Right.
to change. There's pain's just enough that's like, look, I don't want to touch the stove anymore. It's hot.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
go do
So
something else. Yeah.
absolutely. So I think it's a lot of businesses that are really in transition.
Yeah.
If company, there are companies that work with EOS that that are just like, well, we're doing fine, but we want to get better. Maybe they want to position to a sale, or maybe maybe they want to just bring inherent value to the. I mean, it's EOS is great for companies that just want to professionalize to the point of being a transferable company, a company that maybe wants to sell in the future, maybe wants to be
Yeah.
employee owned, maybe wants to transition to the next generation. Because in all of those cases, you want to transfer a valuable asset, and in order to be a valuable asset, it can't be a company that's tied directly to, say, the visionary or the owner. It has to be able to be a sustainable business that is strong not just in financial capital, but all four other capital sources too: human, structural, social, customer. All forms of capital has to be strong in.
Yeah, company that's looking for breakthrough. Whether it's
Yes.
breakthrough for transition, for, like you said, whether they want to go ESOP, they want to sell, they want to move to the next gen, or they're not going to transition for a while, but they just want to transition how they do things.
Hmm.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants to be better. We all want to be better individually, personality wise, leadership wise, company wise, and so forth. I'm curious, and I've talked with a lot of multi generational family business leaders, knowing you mentioned as you were at UC Santa Barbara and the habits you got into there and so forth. Growing up in a family business, I didn't grow up in a family business, so I can't speak to this for myself. I know the pressures that I felt just being the youngest of five kids, and you know, all of them had accomplished things in different areas, music or acting or athletics or finance or what have you. They all had these very unique areas where they excelled, my older siblings. But I didn't feel a lot of pressure to be like them because there was so much variety and difference. But growing up in a family business that had had some success, 60 family members, to your point, involved at any given point in the business, were there expectations or pressures that you felt about either going into the business or, and you don't have to, open up the kimono as we've talked about
Sure.
before, but what kind of, I guess, what kind of expectations or pressures and opportunities as well did you feel growing up in that
Yeah.
environment?
Yeah, and I never had a lot of pressure initially, but I definitely grew up in the bubble. I was growing up, the company when I was born, the company was already close to 60 years old. And so I was already born into a legacy family business that was in its third generation. So
Yeah.
watching my dad and how he interacted with employees, because he had been an employee of Hill Brothers since before I was born. And so I grew up kind of knowing the safety or inherently feeling the safety and security of this business, knowing that, whatever happened, we were going to be okay because this thing was, in my mind, indestructible. It was there.
Mhm.
There was no. It wasn't in my mind that there was a chance that the company could not succeed. I mean, after all, my entire world was attached to it. But you know, and then going into college, I didn't really have a desire to go into the family business, nor was I at all pressured into it growing up. I thought about being a musician for a while. I played cello growing
Mm,
up.
yeah.
I thought about being a marine biologist. All of the dreams, a young person has, and then you graduate from college in the midst of a great, of a recession, not the Great Recession, but of the tech bubble bust, and you hear about how hard it is to find jobs, and
Yeah.
then you realize, like, you just realize constantly that you have these dreams that you want to chase, and they're exciting, but they're also scary. And then right over here on the periphery, there's this safe,
Yeah.
thing that's been
I got a
around for
safety
ages.
net if I want it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when you leave college and you start to think about pursuing those dreams, that safety net, sometimes it looks a lot more attractive, and you're like, well, maybe I'll go in there for a while, and then with the encouragement of my dad and everything, it became that, and I think his pride got him to a point where he started kind of telling the narrative of, yeah, I think you're poised to be the next such and such, or take
Yeah.
over and all that. And so that kind of got into my mind where it might have been more of an obligation or a calling. And who am I to reject that when that's what really everybody wants? Not that everybody wants it, but in our minds we think like, oh, everybody wants to be the CEO of a company, right?
Sure.
And so it felt, I guess, that kind of sense of maybe not false calling, but the calling that would kind of bring me in that direction. And not to say that being the CEO of Hill Brothers was at all bad at all. It was great. It was very rewarding. It was incredibly fun and rewarding to watch this company transform. But it was also very hard. I had to make a lot of sacrifices with how my family saw me, how how those relationships changed. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of give and take.
Well, I remember that process too with you because I met your dad in 2011.
Hmm.
So, handful of years before you took over the reins. And I remember talking with him about the transition and what it's going to look like. And I'm not going to, share anything I shouldn't share, but I remember a lot of the conversations and working with your family and going to family retreats with your family and
Hmm.
seeing and talking with various, relatives of yours. So, watching that transition was fun for me to see you take over and to grow it to where you grew it. Um, do you remember a time in your life early on as a kid where you thought, I know you just talked about maybe musician, maybe other things, but was there a point as a 9-year-old or a 17-year-old where you thought, yeah, this is probably what I'm going to do? Or was it like, no way?
It was the farthest thing from my
Yeah.
mind. I mean, yeah, it was just if somebody would ask me, it was like, no, that's what my dad does. I don't
Yeah.
I don't
My
do
last
that.
name's Hill, but
Yeah,
it's the same for me. Yeah.
yeah, just it's just yeah, but so it just wasn't on my radar necessarily. Yeah.
What advice would you give, not necessarily to 17-year-old Adam, and maybe that's where you want to go with it, but a young man or a young woman right now who's in a third or fourth generation of a family business that's been around 60, 70,
Mhm.
100 years. What advice or wisdom from your years and your experiences would you want to try to pass along to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say I would tell them the relationships are more important than the business, always. And just don't lose sight of that, even if it even if that leads you to a decision not to join the family business for that very reason.
Hmm.
Um, you know, a business is just a tool. And I think a lot of times for families and families that run businesses, especially businesses that have been around for 100 years, it tends to become what I would consider an extension of the family as like this part of what holds it together in, in sometimes an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And I look at that from the perspective of a fourth generation recipient of a legacy. Um, that my great grandfather, I always envisioned him, starting this business, and he started this business with a design to want to make a better life for his family for generations. I mean, that's how he built it, and he successfully did that. He achieved that objective of creating a generational family business. But I'd almost want to go back in time to talk with him a little bit
Hmm.
and share a little bit of what I think we've learned with those four generations. And that I think the lessons that I would learn going back that far would be to uh, discuss what to discuss the idea of how we prepare the next generation and how in how we prepare uh, how when we think about legacy, we think about it from the perspective of preparing the next generation to create new value rather than preserving what was. I think preservation is important, preserving some kind of elements of the legacy and all that, but I think more importantly, we have to, in order for a business to thrive, we've got to prepare to create new value, and we've got to create this this we've got to create new value creators so that they can decide whether or not they want to bring that value into the company or outside elsewhere. Um, and and I think that's kind of what I would go back and tell them. And I would probably tell myself the same thing is look, there, just don't don't pigeonhole yourself into just one area. There's multiple transformations you can make and move in multiple directions. I just waited till I was in my early 30s to realize, oh, I can change the direction of my life at any point and pursue something new, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Hmm.
Did you find yourself, and I've talked with a lot of family businesses about this that are multiple generations, especially in your role, fourth generation, two-part question here. Did you find yourself spending more time focusing on preserving the legacy or more time thinking about the future and putting your stamp on it? And the second part is, would you have done what you did, would you have done that differently?
So to answer the second part of that question, I would have done what I did differently earlier.
Okay.
And I think anybody who has the benefit of hindsight would answer that way.
Yeah.
I would have just made
If we don't learn from the past, then why did we
right.
live there for a while, right? Yeah.
Right. But I think to answer that question, I think that I felt an unsaid pressure, given the sacred cows, I think to preserve what was, even amidst the the challenges we were having, the near insolvency, the near bankruptcy. It was a lot
Yeah.
of we need to preserve the way we were doing things at all costs. That was the pressure that I felt, and I had to. I think what worked for us is I had to fight against that by implementing EOS,
Yeah.
which EOS was not the panacea. It wasn't the thing that it wasn't the savior of our. It was a tool like anything else. I mean, when I
Right.
think of what EOS really is if you look out at a new development of homes that in maybe the Anaheim Hills or whatever, and you see the slabs of foundation that are out there that look ugly, but they're just the slabs of foundation. That's what EOS is. It's the
Mhm.
foundation on which you
You
build the
still have to
beautiful.
have the tools and the ingredients and the
Absolutely.
manpower and the people to do it.
Yeah, you have to have the product, the market, all that good stuff. But I think that shifting that, realizing that, hey, we've got cracks in the foundation in the stuff that we never thought. We're trying to build this beautiful home on a bed of sand,
Yeah.
and
Great way to put it.
we have to redo the foundation.
Mm.
And that was the change that I would have made sooner, to say, like, we need to actually look at these sacred cows that we weren't looking at. Right people, right seats. That would have been, the worst thing that we could have looked at under our old thought process.
Yeah.
Or looking at creating processes that, people think, oh, we're going to dehumanize this company. Well, let's look at it differently. We need to actually systemize the predictable to humanize the exceptional. Let's look at data to do that. And just bringing those kinds of new ideas is a way of evolution. It's not of destroying the past, it's of learning from the past so we can evolve to the future and create new value. And that's what we did, is we got out of our own way to unlock a new opportunity to become the next version of what we needed to be.
What was the hardest thing? If I asked you to fill in the blank, the hardest thing about running a family business was dot, dot, dot. And you know what the next
Family.
question is going to be.
Yeah.
We're going to flip it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I would say, I mean, it was the family dynamics of, I'm also the youngest of my siblings. And, growing up, it was kind of always, I mean, you grow up in a family business for the vast majority of your life, being kind of subject to the will and the discipline of the authorities in your family. And then it shifts when when you become the CEO, and you have to actually lead that family
Yeah.
in the business. And so I think when, the three circles of that family business, the ownership, the family, and the business are kind
Yeah.
of just one giant circle and
Yeah.
intermeshed, it becomes an impossible task because all of that weight again. But I think that was the hardest part, was really separating out those pieces again, and really making the business run like a business. Um, but
Well,
over
and
time,
also even just away from work too. I mean,
yeah,
when you have when the three circles become one, you can't get away from it.
yeah, you
You
can't.
need to.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
healthy. I mean, I know a lot of families have that policy that, hey, at the dinner table we don't talk about it. Other
Mhm.
families, we very much talk about it because it's who we are. And if you think that's right or you think that's wrong, you're right. It's either
Right.
right or it's wrong, depending on each individual family or each
Yeah.
family member. I've been in jobs where I come home and all I do is talk about work, and my family's just like, do we have to hear about this again? And then other jobs I've been in where I ran a minor league baseball team and we all worked there. My
Yeah.
wife was my office manager. My kids worked in the stadium. My wife was the physical therapist for the team. I mean, and we all talked about it, but we loved it because it was our passion. But it did get to a point where it's like, we kind of need a break from this. And
Right.
so we separated out those circles. It was a family business, not our family business, but we were the business and the management side of that family business. And you had to pull away from it for sure. All right.
Yeah.
So giving fair and equal time to the other party here, the best thing about running the family business was dot, dot, dot.
Yeah. I mean, kind of the same thing. It is working with family, to the extent that you get to help them thrive.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I there was just certain points, I worked with both of my siblings, and being able to see small moments of them, you know, just being able to thrive in where they were. I just really enjoyed when those pieces came together. When, say I you know, um, my siblings being able to kind of live into the role of what they wanted, or when the business was going well, and just seeing that connection again start to happen. That was meaningful, and so really bringing it. And I think this is true of any company, not just a family business, but really any company in general, is just being able to bring the team together, and and removing the obstacles that would allow them to thrive. That's a really rewarding thing.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of family businesses and a lot of businesses in general and the work that you
Mhm.
do now and in your past of running a family business and in being in peer groups. And again, I know we know a lot of similar folks. Are there common denominators that you've seen in the companies that you admire the most?
Yeah, I think that the common themes that come up when I see really healthy businesses that are thriving are, a there's a compartmentalization of being able to keep the business in the business, and then the family life, that there's I wouldn't even call it a balance there. It's a harmony. And that
Great
was one of the
word.
best ways I've heard that put at one point. Somebody came
Yeah.
on and said, "I'm not looking for life balance. I'm looking for life harmony." And I'm like, I love that,
Yeah.
because we never find balance, but we can find harmony.
Yeah. I've used
And
the
then
word rhythm too. Work
that
life and
rhythm
rhythm.
is great.
So yeah, rhythm and harmony, kind of those musical terms, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that the other part of it is that team health is being willing to just be completely open and honest, and get the stuff on the table where you're willing to put issues in front of you, not between you, and you're willing to really put your ego aside to solve the key issues. Like I say, the greatest companies in the world recognize that solving issues is probably the greatest skill that you can develop. It's an art and a science. And when you can develop that art and science through practice and discipline, you become a great company.
So we've talked about family and business and family. Let's talk just about family for a minute. Tell us about your
Yeah.
family. I know you're married, you have kids, obviously the dad jokes. I'm teeing you up to another dad joke here in a minute. So tell us about your family. How has your family been? Because, again, I know your history and you've been kind enough to share your history and some tough times. Talk about how your family, especially your immediate family, your spouse, your kids have rallied around you and motivated you and driven you and incentivized you, if you will.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll think of any dad jokes and see if any pop up. Sorry.
Pop, oh, look at that. All right, I got to write these down. Yeah.
But yeah, my so I'll first talk about my wife Marie, who has supported me through everything, including, my sobriety, my recovery from alcoholism, raising our amazing kids, Sarah and Zach. And uh, you know, that's also part of the idea of family and business. And Marie and I have grown together. I once had a podcast guest who specialized in relationships, and she said it this way: you either, as a married couple, you either grow together or you grow apart. And Marie and I have definitely grown together. We grew up together. We met in college back in 1999, and so we've been together for most of our lives.
Yeah.
And I believe that, we've only been married to each other, but we've been married at least four times, then, and that, our marriage has evolved, and it's transformed. And I think we've gone through these iterations, and we're right now we're in the best place we've ever been in. She's looking to buy a business, that we can now, turn into our own. And I'm starting this thing on, that I'm starting. And
Mm.
so we're kind of like collectively, working together but separately. And so we're kind of chronicling that through a project that we're going to launch soon, that's going to become a podcast called Startup Spouses. And so
Oh,
we're
fun.
kind of working through that. So it's going to be a fun little project. May become another opportunity for coaching and things like that. But we've been through a lot. And we've overcome a lot. We've transformed a lot. You know, she's transformed. She's become an Ironman triathlete too.
Wow.
Our daughter, has suffered pretty significant illness over the past few years, and we've had to navigate that. But that's even brought us closer. So I've been really fortunate to meet, somebody and to be with somebody, that is really the right partner for me and supported me through every decision I made. I don't know how I'd have been able to get through what we went
Hmm.
through at Hill Brothers without her,
Yeah.
and anything else really.
That's huge. I had a poster on my wall back in the 90s when I worked at First American Title, and it was 21 keys to happiness in life.
Mhm.
And number one was marry the right person.
Yeah,
Because if you marry the wrong person, number two through 21 means nothing.
right.
And yeah, my wife, Lorianne, and I, we met in 1982. And
Mhm.
so we've known each other 43 years. I'm 61. So since I was literally a kid.
Wow.
And we've been married for 32 of those 43 years. And yeah, same with us. I like that. We've been married 4 times. Yeah, we were, young marrieds with kids, young marrieds with teenagers, older married with kids in college, kids that have moved out. Now we have grandkids. I mean, there's definitely if my life was a book, there are very significant chapters that feed on each other, but some that really stand alone. And I think that's the case with all of us.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think Marie and I are kind of heading into a new phase of marriage too, where our kids are getting old enough now where, we're going to be empty nesters at some point,
Mm.
in the near future.
Wow.
And that's kind of just, I see that like coming up and preparing for it. It's almost preparing for like getting to know your wife in a new way, in a different way again.
Yeah.
And so we make a point, and I think this is really one of the best things that we've ever done for each other was we just take every Saturday morning we have a meeting. And I know meetings in marriage, that's always like people cringe when I say that. Why are
Right.
you bringing business into it? But here's the thing. I mean, like business and relationships are so intertwined. And nobody likes a meeting that should have been an email, but the right kind of meeting at work is the best kind of meeting. The
Yeah.
right kind of meeting in your marriage is the best thing you can do for your marriage.
Yeah.
And so we have a very intentional, agenda driven meeting every week where we do go and we are open and honest with each other. We've been doing that for about maybe 3 or 4 years now. And it's been the best thing that we've ever done with each other. And it's really helped us.
Without giving away secrets of what you guys talk about, can you share a little bit about agenda items, things
Yeah,
for others that
absolutely.
might be listening? Because, my wife and I now have we've been doing this every night now for probably a month, but, we've had stops and starts. But right now we pray together every night and we
Mhm.
read right now 5 chapters out of Psalms. And when we finish Psalms, we're going to go to Job. And when we finish Job, we'll probably go to Matthew. I don't know where we'll go, but it's nothing gets in the way. I teach a college class right now at Concordia, and I taught this morning, and I asked my students, what are some non-negotiables in your life that no matter what, you are going to do this every day? And I loved some of the answers that I got from these college kids. But what are some of the things that are like this meeting is now a non-negotiable? You're going to do
Mhm.
it on Saturdays. Again, without diving into the details of what Adam and Marie Hill talk about, can you share agenda items that are on there for maybe others that might be thinking about doing something similar?
Yeah, absolutely. And this comes right from the EOS playbook. And I'm not to
Cool.
sound like everything is a nail and EOS is just a hammer, but really, I mean, the meeting pulse within EOS worked so well within our business, and I just love that structure that made those meetings very productive. That we adopted a very similar agenda, and really, what it is we start just by sharing some good news. What happened this week that was good for us, individually and within our relationship, and so we get to celebrate to start out with. And then we jump into just kind of some of the data points. It's like a check-in, where we'll say, how do we meet your need? Did I meet your needs this week? Anywhere I didn't meet your needs this week, or anything like that, just to check in. And we each set goals for the quarter that we check in on every week. So we call them rocks. That's what EOS calls them. And so we'll set 3 to 7 rocks for ourselves that we want to achieve every quarter. A lot of times they're associated with our relationship or maybe our individual kinds of businesses, but we want to hold ourselves and each other accountable on that. And then share some headlines. Basically, that's where we kind of go through what we're doing this week, what we have planned, where we're opportunities for connection, that sort of thing. And then we literally have an issues list where we have the issues of the week. These aren't like gripes. These aren't things like that, but they are issues that we want to address. And what that does is it gives us a platform and a forum that's more of a safe place for us to openly and honestly discuss and put those issues before us, not between us, so that we don't end up discussing them or, we all have that situation where, maybe your wife is upset because you leave a dish every day in the same place. And she'll
Right.
go there and she'll get annoyed and she'll put it down. She'll put it down. And then at some point she gets so annoyed she blows up. And then it becomes into an argument. That's what happens. But
Yeah.
it leaves that forum for us to, have those conversations. Not that we're just having, dirty dish conversations all weekend. They could be things related to what do we want to do with the kids this week, or
Yeah.
what are some opportunities that we can connect, or anything like that. And yeah, so we go deep in those sessions, but really it's just that way to a forum to be open and honest and really get to the root of who we are and what we want.
Yeah, and I've talked about this on other podcast episodes and in conversations and just with friends too, that communication's so key, and just to keep that communication line open. Um, you're right. I mean, a dirty dish every day isn't that big of a deal. I say that as the guy leaving the dirty dishes, but when they stack up, it is.
Yeah.
I didn't make the bed today. We sort of have an unwritten rule: the last one out of bed makes the bed. So sometimes we race to get out of bed. Whoever's feet up, your feet hit after mine. We don't take it that far, but I know if I sleep in a little, my wife tends to like to get up earlier than I do most mornings to get outside and start her praying and meditating and writing and journaling and everything else, or just being. And sometimes I want to just lay in bed, and because I know I'm about to get up and go fight the fight and I need a little bit more rest. But
Right.
if I get up after her every day and for like a week I don't make the bed, I can see it kind of, coming up a little bit. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that communication is so important in business and family and parenting and so forth as well, and communicating with the kids.
Mhm.
What would you say is your biggest hope for your kids?
That's a great question. I think my biggest hope is that they are self-sustainable,
Mm.
that they feel the freedom to be self-sustainable, that they understand the boundaries of what freedom represents, so that that they can make wise decisions and just I think that and just be able to make their own way without having to ask what if.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. You've talked about one of my favorite authors, Jim Collins, a few times today. When you think of leaders, authors, famous, not famous, family, whoever that you admire
Mm.
and have admired for a long time, tell us who it is or not, but what is it about that person that makes you admire them so much? Tell us a little bit about who you are by who you admire.
Yeah, that question brings up a really fond memory that I have, which I hope I have time to share.
Time is
Is
yours.
Yeah, when I was about 8 years old, I heard news around the neighborhood that Roger Staubach was going to be filming a commercial at our local high school.
Hmm.
And at the time, I was playing for the Mission Viejo Cowboys as an 8-year-old Pee Wee football player, and I heard about this famous quarterback and to go to the high school, and so I dressed up in my Cowboys jersey,
Hmm.
hiked up my knee-high socks, grabbed my football, and went up there just to get a glimpse of Roger Staubach. And sure enough, I got there, and he was filming his commercial, and between takes, he kind of looked at me and kind of gave me one of those like, "Who is this kid?" kind of thing. But then he put up his hands and did one of these, where I'm kind of holding up like, throw me
Yeah.
the ball kind of
Throw me
thing.
the ball. Yeah.
And so I proceeded to toss the ball. It went over his head, and he had to go chase it down. But he ended up playing catch with me between takes for about an hour.
Hmm.
And then he took a picture with me. And this was before, obviously before the day
Yeah, you
of
weren't holding
digital
up a phone
phones.
getting a selfie, right? Yeah.
Right, right. So he had his assistant take a picture of us, but it was with his phone. I didn't, or his camera. I didn't have a camera,
Hmm.
and so I thought I'd never see that picture. It was just like, oh, well, that was very nice. But then he signed my football to Adam Hill, star of the future. I didn't become a star quarterback, but that's but I but about a week later, I got called into the office at our school, and I went in there. I thought I was in trouble. I went in there and I was so scared. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And the administrator just handed me a photo and said, somebody dropped this off for you. And it was a picture of me and Roger Staubach that I still have that framed to this day.
Wow.
And it gets me emotional even to this day of what a representation of leadership, of understanding your position as a leader,
Yeah.
and what that necessitates, because he could have just as easily just blown me off. I would have never thought of it again.
Yeah.
But being that example has always stuck with me as what it means to be a leader.
He was my favorite quarterback as a
Oh
kid.
yeah.
I was a big Dallas Cowboys fan because of Roger Staubach and his coach, Tom Landry. For those that don't know, Roger Staubach played quarterback, Hall of Famer, um, for the Dallas Cowboys back. I knew of him in the 70s and maybe early 80s. Um, I've since transitioned out of my Dallas Cowboy fandom for different reasons. But yeah, Roger Staubach, because I didn't have that experience, but I had similar experiences. The LA Rams used to practice at Cal State Fullerton, and I grew up in Fullerton when I was a kid, under 12, probably 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. I'd ride my bike with a buddy over to Cal State Fullerton in the summertime and park the bike outside the locker room and wait for my heroes to walk out.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget one guy who I would carry his shoulder pads and his helmet, and he'd hand me a couple. It might have been a dollar, might have been five. I don't know. It's probably a dollar. Could have been 20. I don't know. It felt like $1 million because I'm hanging out with
Right.
these NFL heroes of mine.
Right.
Rob Scribner played running back at UCLA, then went on and played for the Rams. And Rob was one of those guys that I just really admired him. He was a hard worker. He wasn't the star of the team, but he played every down, and he was a hard, he was hard-nosed running back for the Rams. Fast forward a couple, probably 6 or 7 years ago, a friend of mine, didn't mean to hijack your story, by the way. I love the
No.
Staubach story, but it just triggered this thought of Rob. Rob Scribner is now a Pentecostal pastor in Santa Monica. At least he was when I saw him 7, 8 years ago. Um, I have a big, strong heritage to USC. I went there, I worked there. My dad went there, my sister went there. We're Trojans. And Rob went to UCLA. And a buddy of mine who went to UCLA called me the night before and asked, hey, I'm playing in this UCLA alumni golf tournament. You want to play? Well, the only golf shirt I probably had that fit me at the time was a USC shirt. My
Hmm.
head covers on my golf clubs were USC head covers. So I show up at this golf course decked out in cardinal and gold at a UCLA golf tournament. I'm on the putting green putting, and this guy comes over to me, and I just see it. We all had name tags on until we played. Then we took the name tags off. And Rob Scribner's like, no way. So I told him the story. He goes, I remember you.
Oh,
Right?
really?
No, you don't. He goes, no, you rode a little red Schwinn bicycle, and I knew for those 2 summers that you were going to be there. And I didn't know your name. I don't think I probably got your name because I didn't know it now. But he goes, I see your name tag and it doesn't remind me. But I remember this little guy that lived just around the corner and came over on his little Schwinn bicycle and propped it up. I go against the little bush against the gym. Yeah, exactly. And I started to cry.
Hmm.
As I'm this grown man on the putting green starting to cry that this guy that was my hero, and now I'm getting ready. We didn't play golf together that day, but we talked a lot about life and about, spirituality and his role as a pastor. And, I used to be Mormon and I left the Mormon church. He wanted to hear about that. We just stopped practicing and talked for a half hour until
Hmm.
it was time for us to go our separate ways on the course. But yeah, those moments where those heroes impact us, you would have still had a great Roger Staubach story, even if the picture didn't show up a week later. Played
Absolutely.
catch with him and all this, but then he took it that step further. Great lesson there as a leader for us to, gosh, to look for those extra moments to just take that one extra step that probably isn't that hard for us to do, but means the world to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I read a story recently of a guy who um, ran a multi-billion-dollar company, And anytime he'd go to the different offices to visit, he made sure he walked around. And if a person wasn't at their desk, he'd leave a little yellow sticky note. Hey, great job on that such and such client. I heard about how you saved the day on this client. And thank you so much. We need more people like you.
Hmm.
And that employee may never meet that CEO, but boy, that yellow sticky note ain't going anywhere.
Right.
Didn't
Right.
take much for him to do that, but it sure made a world of difference to that person who got it. So
Absolutely.
thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that Starbucks story. I like him even more now, and I like you even more now because we have that in common, but also because I know how much that means to you.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Yeah.
no, that's awesome. Boy, I could go a lot of different directions right now. What breaks your heart?
I think we kind of, I think
You've
we
touched
kind of,
on some of it. Yeah.
yeah, we touched on, I mean, I think what breaks my heart is the same moment that warms my heart, but taken the opposite direction, meaning there's an opportunity to transform and it's not taken. Um,
Yeah.
I think that there's the opportunity to missed opportunities like that are heartbreaking, but understanding that everybody's on their own journey and just has to take their own path.
Yeah. Love that. So I asked what your biggest hope was for your wife. What do
Mm.
you hope our listeners today take away and know about Adam Hill?
Yeah, I think, well, I hope that they take away something that they can learn about themselves, which is the idea that I'm going to steal a phrase from Iron Man now, because
Cool.
that's something that's near and dear to me too, but that anything is possible, truly anything is. And even if you don't feel like that transformation that you want to make is possible now, or that transition, or the company that you want to build isn't possible now, or the person you want to become isn't possible. It absolutely is. And it just takes a discipline one step at a time. And it takes a community, it takes a village. Um, there was a period just a couple of years before we became a profitable, record-breaking nine-figure business that we said that we would never be a nine-figure business. That was a psychological barrier for us. But don't let those psychological barriers stop you from achieving and doing what you want to do. There's a formula for it. There's a way to do it, and you can make it happen.
What's the best way for someone to reach you? They want to learn more about EOS. They want to learn about Ironman. They want to learn about your wife's business. They want to talk more about this Saturday morning agenda,
Yeah.
anything and everything they want to talk to you about. What's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, well, I'm on LinkedIn, which is the best way to stay connected with me, which is just LinkedIn and at Adam C. Hill. So just think Adam Chill,
Adam
and
Chill.
you'll
I
get
like
there.
it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Nice. I
Yeah,
didn't
and
think that when I saw it.
I'll just share my email as well if anyone wants to reach out directly. You can reach out at adam.hill@eosworldwide.com. And yeah, I'm usually if I'm in session or something like that, maybe my assistant will answer, but I will get back to you.
Awesome. And I'll put those in the notes as well
Yeah.
and on the LinkedIn post and everywhere we post this. My biggest goal right now
My biggest goal right now is just to help other businesses to navigate their transition and get to a full slate of clients that I can help do that, as many as I can help transition in the same way that we did, from really that pain to that prosperity. I would love to do it. That's my biggest goal right now.
okay. And I have one last question. I ask all my guests this question. It's redundant for the last hour, but it's your chance to take everything we just talked about, sum it up into one statement by answering simply the question, Adam Hill, what's in your heart?
Um, Human connection is in my heart right now. And I think that we desperately, as human beings, need that. Whether it's in our business, in our families, in our communities, build that community, build it in person, make the call, just connect with other human beings on a very, very personal level. You will be surprised at how well that can heal whatever is going through our hearts right now. Connect with an open mind and an open heart.